Hi guys, Crafty Crystal here. We're going to make a thermal blanket. A nice warm, very warm, double-sided, soft, crunchy, thick thermal blanket. Okay? Now to make the thermal blanket, I used 8-inch squares. Let me get this out of the way. Like this. And I put them into strips. Like this. Then I connected the strips into the blanket. Now, to make these, you start out with these, without any edging on them. And to make those is what we're going to embark on now. Okay, what I used was, used a bunch of small skeins that were about between 100 and 116 yards each. So I pretty much used a small skein for each square. Allow 100 yards when you're figuring out your skeins. Use an H-hook to make the squares. They're about 8 to 8¼ inch each. The yarn used is 4-weight worsted acrylic yarn. And I used an H-hook to make the insides, an E-hook for the small borders and the wide border. And it turned out pretty good. So I suggest you make a sample square to see how wide, how large, what your dimensions are with your way of crocheting. Also be aware if you use different yarns that some will be thicker. Like for instance, this blue is a thicker, even though it says 4-weight, is thicker than this that said 4-weight. You can even tell it looks coarser and finer. Same way with my yellow yarn, it's a little thicker, but it's softer. So you want to make your sample swatches, find out how much you need. On the average, though, you will need to buy enough yarn so you have 100 yards per square. Okay? All right, let's get started. In order to show it up very well, I'm using my pink and dark green background so you can see what I am doing. We're going to start with learning how to do the setup for the stitch, and then we're going to do the a whole square. So we got one. We're going to do a loose chain of 30 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on forth. "26, 27, 28, 29. This is 29. I want to go back and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. So this is 29 right here. And this is 30. Now 30, we're going to chain up 2, 1, 2. I'm going to back up to 29 and turn it over. We're going to go into our chain, pull up a loop, and we're going to go into the back hump of our 29th stitch and do a double crochet. Okay, now this keeps you from having this big floppy thing going out the end. It connects your outside edges. Then we're going to do 1 double crochet into each hump back of the chain. Okay, so double crochets are wrap, go into whatever hole you're using, pull a loop through, wrap, bring through 2 loops, wrap, bring through 2 loops. See? And we have 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to do that all along the back until I have 30 stitches. Okay, coming up on the end, when you get to your very last stitch, the one that has the knot on it, you don't want to go through the back hump. You want to go through one side and 2 stitches. This makes your last stitch not sloppy. I used to make a lot of them. You have a big old sloppy stitch on the end, and I hated it. And that's a good way to combat it. Now, you made your double. I did make a double, didn't I? Or did I make a half double? Just a minute. Just a minute. I didn't do either. I made a single. Okay, I want to go through around 2 stitches. Complete my double. And then I'm going to chain 2 and turn. Now, before I do anything else at all, I want to put a foundation guide through the bottom here. With your stitch, your next stitch you're going to start up and in your crochet side. You go up through the second, you go under the second stitch, over the third, under the fourth, and so on all the way down, so that every other stitch is up and every other stitch is down. Oops. When you get to the end, you had 2 stitches left. Your original stitch and your second stitch, the one you connected to it. Pull any kind of an alternate colored thread through all those stitches. Now you can avoid this, but you're going to regret it. You really are. I've done 70 squares this way, and I figured after I got through half of them, no problem. Didn't work. I ended up skipping stitches and having to tear it out. And I hate frogging. Okay, so chain 2. I'm going to go into my chain 2, pull up a loop. And this loop here is the one that goes on your chain, so that belongs to that. The next one is the one you go into. Pull up a loop. Take a loop and come through all 3 on your hook. That's a half double crochet. Okay? Now, this is how we start this. You have a front stitch here. You have a back stitch here. You're going to go through the back stitch first. Then you're going to come back and do the front stitch. Then you're going to skip over and go in the next back stitch and come in the front and do the next front stitch. So they're going to be facing each other. The back will be facing that way. The front will be facing that way. It makes it 2-sided. Okay, so first thing is the back. Always the back first. You wrap, go under the next back one. That's this one. Pull up a loop, wrap, pull through 2 loops, wrap, and pull through 2 loops. Now you're going to wrap and come back and go through this front one that you missed right here. Wrap, pull up a loop, wrap, go through 2 loops, wrap, go through 2 loops. Okay, now it doesn't look like much yet, but it will. Now you wrap, and you're going to have to reach way over here to the next one, next back loop, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2, wrap, come back to the next front one. You're backing up. Pull up a loop, go through 2, whoops, and go through 2. Okay. Wrap, come through the back one, Go through two, go through two, wrap, pull a loop through the front one, go through two, go through two. Back, I'm going to show you something. Because every other row you do now is going to be exactly the same. Once you get your setup done. Now, when you come to the end of any row, you're going to have you're going to see that there's the second one over. It's just a plain stitch. There's no back stitch there. So you're going to come through and you're going to go through that second stitch. Second one from the end. Pull up a loop. Pull it up pretty good. And complete a back post. Now your last front post will not have any back post to go into, but that's okay because that's how you're ending it. Your front post comes directly down into the last stitch in your row. Oops. There we go. With a half double. There. Now, at the beginning of every row, here's your slant stitch. You're going to have 1, 2 in front of it. At the end of every row, here's your slant stitch, and you're going to have 1 in back of it. So it's 2, 1 every time. And you turn this over. Oh, first let's chain 2, shall we? Chain 2 and turn. Okay. Connect our stitch. This is the one that you can see goes into the chain. So we want the next one. Pull up our loop, do a half double. Okay? Now this is the end. This is the end of our chain. This loop belongs to this stitch, and this belongs to the last stitch. What you can do, make sure you don't lose your last stitch. Put a keeper or a little piece of yarn in it. Okay. Now you've got your two stitches, your beginning chain and your first half double. You go back here and you find the next back post, not the one that's right under it. This is the second one. It's under your thing here. You're under your first stitch. You come over here to your next free back post. Wrap, go under your back post, pull up, pull through. Okay. Now you wrap, you come to your first front post here. And front post. Now it seems like an awful long way to go. You've got to go clear over here to this back post. But it really isn't that far because your front post will be leaning towards it and it's leaning towards your front post, and that's what gives you your slant. They meet in the middle right over your next front post. You reach over clear over to your next back post. Now when you're doing it like this, you can see the back post where you can get under it easy. The front posts are facing you and they can be a little bit difficult. I like to stick my thumbnail under there where I can find it real easy. Okay, now you can see we have a definite slant here and a definite slant there. By the time you got your third row, you can tell it's doing just right. And you go back and you make sure that you have up, down, up, down, up, down. Nobody is missing, nobody's been skipped. It's easy to go into the back ones twice. So you have to make sure that you reach way over to get your next back stitch. Like that. Okay. Now when you have 2 front stitches left, you will have 1 back stitch left. So you go into that last back stitch, and you come down into your second front stitch. Now you're ready to go in back again, but you used your last back stitch. And that's where you come into second stitch from the end, the one you connected to your end chain. Okay? You wrap. If you look at this here, you've got your top chain here and your end. You've got 1 loop underneath it. Go into that loop and sneak around that post inside of this. You don't want to go across the end chain. And you're making a new post. And you wrap, come around your front post again. That finishes the sequence. And you have this 1 stitch in back. 1 stitch left. Wrap, go into it, pull up a loop, make a half double, chain 2, and turn. And just like before, you have 2 stitches in front of your post, and you have your back post, and you have 1 stitch. Your back post just goes to your back post, and 1 after. Back over here. Same difference. You go into here, skip the one that goes into the chain, go into the second one, make a half double crochet. Now here's your front chain you're going to go into. You skip over the back and you go into the next back chain, back stitch. Always start with the back first. You'll get totally loused up. Then you back up and go into the front one. Turn it, find your back one, yarn over, go through your back one, do your back double post, wrap, come back up to your front post, do your front double post. Reach way over to your next back post that isn't being used. Make sure you pass the front post to get to it. And go in your front post. There you have. Okay? Now that's how we started. We're going to do 18 rows. Okay, I'm going to recap the end one more time. Then we're going to pretend like this is the 17th row we just did. Modern imagination is fantastic, isn't it? Okay. So when you do the second one to the end, you have no back stitch to go into. No back post. So you have these 2 stitches here. See these stitches here? And you have this stitch under them. You're going to come under that one, and you're going to sneak over inside of here. You don't want to go through this outside chain, but you do want to get around the post. Okay, and you bring up your back post. Then you go into your front post. And now we're going to do a half post in the last stitch, which we marked. Double half. You just bring it through all 3. Chain 2. Take out our marker. And turn. Now, you can do the 18th row exactly the same as you did all the others. Let's now turn to yellow. See, where's the top and the bottom? There's the bottom. Okay. So, now, these particular ones, this particular one I goofed on. I have 32 stitches instead of 30. So I will be reducing it by 2. Because you can't put more than 30 on the sides. It just will not work. too many stitches. So I make 30 on the sides and 30 across the top. So first thing I'm going to do is I use yarn. You can use clips or anything you have that you check things with. Now here's the end that has 2 stitches on it. We have the slant, 1, 2. So that is this end. This is slant and 1. This was the end where I went through both stitches so I wouldn't have a loose end. So this one's a little chunky. So you have the top of the top of your post here and 1 post on the outside. So you have 1 on one end, 2 on the other, just like every other time. Here you have your slant, 1, 2. Oh, we'll use a small one. I wish I had a bunch of those little clips. I ran out of them. The yarn can be a pain in the neck when you have to keep stopping and untying it. Anyway, here's the top of my slant, and here's the stitch next to it. So you have 2 before and 1 after. Okay. Now because I have 32 stitches here, I'm going to reduce it twice in there. So I'm going to put some reminders. I don't really need a reminder this time, but when you're doing a whole bunch of squares and you find out you did the whole side and forgot to put the stitches in, it's inconvenient. Okay. So I come down, I find the approximate middle, and I come out about 1/3 of the way, and 1/3 of the way, and in the middle, and 1/3, and 1/3. And I bring one of these long pieces. There's a long piece. Not you, you. Okay. Bring one of my long pieces through here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to single crochet 5 stitches in each of these holes. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So now, start on whichever end you like. I like to start on this end just to get one of them over with. Now to do my edges, I did all my squares with an H. And in order to keep my outsides from getting really too fluffy or wiggly, I come down one size to a G. Go in my corner. Drop down, let go, let go. Okay, because it's the beginning, I'm going to go ahead and do a single crochet, total single crochet in this end. So when I come back, this is the top of my single crochet. And I don't have to figure out how am I going to connect this properly. I just do it to it. Okay, now that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And do your best not to go all the way around a post like that. You'll make a big hole. Try to go through 2 threads at least, but not around 3. That's 3 stitches. See, that wants to go through there. I'm going to back up in here and then go through 1. This didn't seem to be cooperating. Let's see. How about I go through this one and that one? There we go. Any way you can connect it that it won't make a hole. Get through there. There we go. Now that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And 5. Now you may find when you come to the end this will be longer or shorter, and you'll think, I cannot possibly make only 5 in there. You can. It's very forgiving. It'll go along with the program. This is your last stitch, so this is number 5. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You chain 1 and you go in the same stitch and make another single crochet. And I'm going to go, that's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This one is my turn stitch. Put that in my turn stitch. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And since I want to reduce it, I'm going to go pull up a loop, then wrap, pull up a loop in the next one, and then pull a loop through all of them. I do it that way because if you don't, you're going to have a crossbar here if you don't pull a loop up in the middle. So it'll go looking all nice like this, and it'll have a crossbar. And if you're using material where it'll really show up like the gray against the yellow, you don't want to do that. It makes it a tiny bit bulkier, but it's not going to hurt the pattern, and nobody's going to notice it. 9, and my 10th is going to take 2 stitches. So I go bring a loop up like normal, wrap so it won't go across the back, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, then wrap and go through all of them. And 1, 8, 9, and 10, and that makes my 30. 10, 10, and 10. Okay. Now don't worry if these look a little wonky, because when you put them together they won't look wonky. They'll stay really nice. Okay, now we chain 1, go back into the same stitch we went to last, do our first single, and we need to get 5 between here, there, and here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's my turn stitch right there. One. Make sure you always have at least 2 threads but didn't go through around a whole post. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. 1, over a little bit. 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 15. It's the halfway mark. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can't do that. That's you. And you. 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And one. Joke on you. 2, 3, 4. 'I missed you, didn't I? Okay, and the last 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Up and through. There you go. Knew you could do it, babe. Oh, except for one thing, I didn't do my chain 1. Now I get to fight it again. Okay. There we go. Now we did our 30 on this side. Okay. Now here's where we began our single crochet. Oops. I'm going to put this in the last stitch here for the end. And here's where we began, so we go in there and we finish up with that. Chain 1. And slip stitch to that first stitch, that first whole stitch we made. Okay? We'll snug it down. And that's my end, that's my extra stitch there for my corner. Now, the next level, chain 1, wrap, go back in that same stitch and pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook. Now you pull that bottom stitch up to the top 2 loops. You don't yarn over again like you would for a double or a half double. So you wrap, you go into the next stitch and pull up a loop. You bring that loop up through these 2. Okay? Wrap. Bring that stitch up to the 2 on your hook. Wrap, bring up a loop, Now, the reason why I'm turning around backwards, because it's easier for me. I don't drop my stitch. If I go this way, and I try to do it this way, I end up dropping my stitches half the time. If I go through the other way, it's just easier. So get used to doing that, and it'll become second nature to you, and you'll find it so much easier than trying to go the front way and end up dropping stitches. Is there anybody out there that enjoys dropping stitches? If there is, leave a comment, so I would like to meet you. Okay. Now, this is what it looks on this side. And this is what it looks like on the other side. See how the stitch is over here and you have these extra bumps? That becomes your front. Come here, you. See the extra bumps here? That becomes your front, like that. It gives you a nice pretty finish. Or you can use that as the back. Put this in the front if you want. It's up to you. You probably will put a totally different border on yours. This is your project, so you do what you want with your project. It's that simple. Okay. So, you do this all the way around, and on the end, you do the last stitch before the turn stitch. You chain 2, go beyond the turn stitch, and do 1 in the next row. Okay, now this one, this is the corner one. So you have your stitch that goes in here, and that's the stitch that goes up to it. You have your corner one, then you have this stitch on this side, and the stitch that goes around it, okay? So we go into the stitch in front of the corner one. Oh, get out of my way, Charlie. Scoot. Whoops. Wrap. Go through. Back into it. Okay. Now chain 2. Come around this little guy here. Wrap. Go into the next stitch on the next side. And back into it. Do about 3 of these. I'll go change my corner. Okay. I'll take this out. I'll put it right between my 2 here. That's so that I know neither one of these is the next stitch, the next outside stitch. And I don't have to move it again. All right. See, that connects those 2 stitches. That's my 2 outside stitches. You do that on each end. So you come back to your beginning and chain 2 and slip stitch to your first stitch here. Okay? Okay, I'll be back. Came to my marked corner where I marked the extra stitch. Chain 2, come past the marked stitch into the very next stitch, whoops, wrap, go into the very next stitch, bring your stitch up. Pull this out. And if you use one of those little clips, make sure you go in one extra stitch and out the other, so there's absolutely no doubt what's which and who's what and where they go and all that kind of good stuff. Come on. Come on. Don't give me trouble just because somebody's watching. There you go. I try to talk nice to my yarn, but sometimes it frustrates me. And then it gets frustrated with my frustration and it messes up all the time. So you got to control your temper when working with yarn. It's very sensitive. His feelings gets hurt. In fact, if you're having difficult stitches, you tell it what a good girl or boy it is and how proud you are of how good job it's doing. And then it'll straighten out and be nice for you. I know that sounds really silly, and it is. But sometimes it helps me to calm down and just say, now, is it your attitude or the actual yarn? The yarn's just sitting there, so it has to be my mental attitude towards what I'm doing. I just did a half double. We don't want a half double, Chris. What would I call this? I guess you could call it a barred half double, couldn't you? Or a double bar half double? I don't know. Let's see. You've got this stitch in the bottom. You've got these two stitches here. I don't know. I guess I'd call it maybe a barred half double, I guess. What do you want to call it? Any ideas? I make up stitches for what I need, and then I don't know what to call them. I had my barred slip stitch, which I dearly love, because you know how slip stitches face so much of one side that it's hard to use them on the other side. A barred slip stitch is absolutely flat, perpendicular to the plane of the crochet. Perfectly flat edge, and I love that. Same with a barred single. Instead of it slanting forward, it'll go straight. And it makes it great when you want to connect two pieces with a needle and thread. You go in between them and it looks seamless on both sides. Very, very cool. Don't you dare go yarn over again. Now this is my corner that I fixed. So I use this stitch, so that's my next stitch. So chain 2, come over into my next stitch. Wrap, go into the stitch, get out of my way, pull up a loop, go through 2 loops, and away you go. Okay, here's my chain 2. I'm going to go right in between these 2 stitches. First chain and the second chain. There. So left side of the square. And we came back to the beginning. We'll go ahead and chain 2 and slip stitch into that top of that first stitch. And we're done with this puppy. All we gotta do is this out to our chain 2 space. Let go. My goodness. You get to work again. Okay, now, for anything, I want to put this on the other side. This is where my fronts are going to be. I want my fronts to all be together. Okay, now, I'm going to double check my count. There's the chain 2. The one that's right next to it is 1. Okay. I'll do that on all 4 sides to make sure I have 30 between my corners. If I was a good girl, I got 30 between my corners. Now let's see, what number is this? This is 2. And this is 1. Okay, so I got 1, and I got number 2. I want all my tiles straight up, and I want the first row on the top. That's just how I'm doing mine. First row's on the top. This is the 7th row, tile 1. 7th row, tile 2. Front to front. Okay. Now, I'm going to pick up my H, I'm going to pick up my G. The front sides together. You take the outside of your first stitch. I didn't put you on the outside, did I? Shame on me. Shame on the mess. See, it keeps you from having to fart around like this afterwards if you do it right. I'm getting off center again, aren't I? There we go. See, when you do your corners right, you don't have this problem. Now again, since I messed up a little bit, okay, I'm going to double check that I've got my front number 1 facing me. This is the outside edge. I've got my 2 facing me. This is the edge that has to be connected. Put my 2 inside edges together. Okay, and my outside stitch here, and my outside stitch here. Whoops, not yet, not yet, not yet, Chris. My goodness. First we go through the hole. Now you can either go through the hole or you can go through the first of the 2 chains, depending on what you're in the mood for. Okay. Alright. Now I go through outside of the first. Get out of the way. Go to the first, okay. And we're going to slip stitch. Now you can sew these if you prefer. I just prefer just to crochet them. I'm happy enough with how the back looks. It makes a thicker ridge when you crochet it instead of sew it. But you know, I'm just working on making a warm blanket for my family for winter, and I really don't care if it's got a raised ridge. There's lots of ways to do it where you don't have one. Okay, so I'm doing the outside of each one all the way along like that. Okay, outside of the stitch, outside of the stitch, pull it through and through. Outside of the stitch, outside of the stitch, through and through. That leaves the inside with its design to stand up, looking pretty, making an impressive edge. Keep wanting to pull it close to me, and that pulls it out of the camera. I'm trying very, very hard to stay in the camera, guys. I'm working really, really hard at it. Okay. See how it looks on this side? See there? Isn't that pretty? See the seam down in there? Nice. Okay. Anyway, that's how you connect them. I'll go ahead and finish this edge. Make sure you turn your stitches so you can see what you're doing properly. So last two stitches before the end, go through the end, slip stitch. Go to the slip stitch through that. There we go. See? When you're putting rows together, see, this is number 6. This is 5. This is 5. 5 and 6. Okay. Now 5 is lower than 6. In my thing, this is 6th up, this is 5th up, so this is down here. Okay, you do the same thing. You've made your rows so you don't have any basting in here. You can either baste them together or simply start crocheting them. And like I said, I prefer to crochet mine rather than sew them. I'm going to go through the end loop with the two, where the two chains are. Where's my thread? There we go. Make sure it's plenty long enough you'll be able to weave it back and forth through, especially if you have a long needle. Okay, get out of my way. These things can really bug you. Okay. Now remember, anytime you are slip stitching, you want your slip stitches to be the same size, same length as your stitches on here. Now this is the side stitch, so we're going to go on the outside of that stitch. You're too tight. Go on the outside of that stitch. Like that. Okay. Come here. And the outside of that stitch. Shoo. There we go. And slip stitch. And here we go. Make sure that the next stitch you go into is not one you already went into. Make sure you aren't skipping one. Now this one comes into this stitch, so the next one I want is this one. The other side is easier for me to see because they are going into where I'm going from. You just follow the loop. These are coming out of, which means they can be a little confusing. Outside, outside, just like we did with the connecting the squares. I'll show you what I do when I get to the corners. When you reach the corners, which I am almost at, I explained to you how I do it, but I want to show you because a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Okay. Okay, now I slip stitch into my last 2 stitches on each side. This is the loop here. Go in this stitch. Now I did these in different ways because I did them over a period of a couple of weeks. I had different methods of fixing the edges. Okay, now Tamiya. Now this is the hole. I just slip stitch these together. This is where the chain stitches are, and you can either match one of the chain stitches and cross or just go around it. Slip stitch into this hole, swing across, slip stitch into that hole, out damn spot. Ah, there we go. Okay. So here's our hole we went through. This is the stitch going into our outside stitch. So we're going to go outside here. This is the stitch going into around the post of our last stitch. Wait a minute, let me make sure I'm seeing it correctly. Yeah, that's the one going into our next post. Always check the post, you can tell which stitch is which. The loop that is surrounding that stitch is the one that belongs to it. Now it's just a matter of diddy-bopping along and doing these. Yeah, I diddy-bop. Doesn't everybody? Okay, now I'm going to go forward a few stitches, and I'm going to show you how I tie them together. See what I did? I did that on the wrong stitch. So these are turning out. You got to make sure you're on the outside of these. These are turning out. Make sure on the outside of these.
Hi, babe. Wait just a little bit longer for your steak.
Okay. That was my son telling me dinner's almost ready.
Oh, I just walked in on you. I'm sorry.
Oh dear. Okay. So, make sure I'm in the right spot. The smell of charcoal briquettes is driving me nuts. You hadn't even put the meat on yet. Just the briquettes by themselves smell good. Okay, a couple more here. Okay. Now it's going to be a while before I resume this. So, now when you're when I've got these together, now you have the two loose ends here that we did not tie in. Remember I said don't tie in the loose ends? We're going to make a square knot. Like that. Now this part is going back where it came from. This part is going back to where it came from, and that's how we will weave them in. See, I've got a nice. I'm going to use this one. I don't really need a Sharpie this time. Okay. Now, because this is okay, and this is not going to be coming apart, this is not holding anything together. We can just walk down here any old way, as long as it doesn't go through the front. It's plenty long enough. Stretch it and go back. I don't have to worry about it catching itself because it's not going to be in any strain. Yeah. That's simple. Oh, scissors. My scissors are hiding somewhere, so I'll use my spare. Whoop. Okay. This one will go in that direction. Okay? So that way they wrap around each other by a knot so that they're going back in the same direction they came from. And then they double back from that. And ain't nothing going to come apart. Okay? Alright. So that's how you do the long ones. If you pull these apart, you can see where they're connected. Otherwise, you just see the edges. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep putting my rows together till I got the whole thing. I think I've shown you everything now. Talked to you about orientation and putting the pattern together so you don't lose it. Okay, in this part I'm going to show you how to start your border. You tie on. I'm going to go through both of them. You do it however you normally do yours. I just don't want to mess with it. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and you want to wrap, and you want to go behind the column you just made. Then wrap, and go down into the next stitch. So you have 5 loops on your hook. Wrap and go through 2, 2, 2, and 2. So that's 4 times. People call this a double triple or a double double. I just call it a quad because you're going through 4 times. But the height is the 2 double crochets, which makes it kind of nice to make a wide border without having to go all the way around twice. Okay? Now, you're going to, Chevy, I don't need your help, baby. Go on. Go on. Thank you. My cat's always willing to help me. Okay. Now you want to go down between these two and under this crossbar. Pull up a loop. Wrap. Go into your next stitch. And back up again 4 times. Okay. And you wrap. Go under this. Now there's a little piece under here. See that? make sure you either go through it every time or miss it every time. I go under because sometimes I forget to go through. And that way my back will look the same all the way. If you miss sometimes and hit it sometimes, it's going to make a weird, unprofessional looking back. Okay, I'll do this. No, I won't do it one more time. Okay. Now, see how each of these comes under the other one, and it has each of them like have this double wrap look to them. That's why you wrapped the first time instead of going in the middle. If you started this one and you went into this like you would a regular stitch, this would stop right here. It wouldn't wrap around, and you wouldn't have this look. It's a double miss, okay? So that's how you start your wide border. Okay, now this is the stitch right before my chain 2. I'm going to do a regular stitch in it. Now, I'm doing my first stitch into the 2 like normal. So I'm doing a full, one whole stitch, okay? Now I'm going to do half a stitch. So that's 1 1/2. That's because I want 2 for every one I have down here, because the top has to turn farther than the bottom. Now I'm going to wrap, and I'm going to do another full stitch. So this is 2 stitches. And a half. And 3 stitches. And a half. So I have 1, 2, 3 down here, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up here. Now if you look, that pretty much turns the corner. 6 on the top and 3 on the bottom. I tried 4, I tried 5. 3 seems to foot the bill. Then I go ahead and I go on to my next stitch. I want to do 2 or 3 more, and then I want to take another look. Excuse me. At my corner. Always do that. Always look. After you turn, tighter, looser, hook size, yarn size. You never know. It's best to look and decide if you need to adjust it. If it's not cupping and it's not stretching or wiggling, well, you cut that out, Chris. There we go. Now I'll do 1 more and then I'll check it again. Works really good. So in that chain 2 space we have 3 full stitches, and then we add a half stitch on each one of them. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 on the bottom, 6 on the top. And that makes a really good corner, okay? Okay. When you're making a blanket where you have squares connected together and you're doing the sides, you'll often have this place where you have like a little dip where you can tell that it went into the 2 squares. See over here, no dip? Okay. this is what you do. I'm going to go ahead and make my stitch the way I usually do, going down into my chain 2 space. Okay, now the next one is where I put a loop through both of these and then pull through 3 and 2 and 2. See there? This comes down, and here this whole thing is pulled down. See how? See how the whole stitch is pulled down? Okay. So what we're going to do is we make it like normal. We go to this chain 2 and this chain 2, but we're going to go through just the bottom 2 stitches by themselves. That's like adding a single crochet to the crack. It's now on the same level as the rest of your squares, the edge of your squares. Then you go ahead and go through the 2, 2, 2, and 2. And I'm going to do the one on the other side of the chain like you're supposed to. Like I'm supposed to for this pattern. And then go through my stitches. And I'll do a couple of them so I can go back and show you the no dip. Some of these things I don't think of until I'm past that point. Then I have to come back and show you. But you see what's going on here. There we go. No dip. This stitch is up to the level of your squares, and that means you have no dip on the top. Okay? Okay. Now this time I believe I stayed in the camera. Okay, now we're going to go to the other part of this border, which is the end of it. I'm going to show you how to end it with the sew method. So I have one stitch left before my beginning. I'm going to wrap, go below the legs, wrap, go into that last stitch, do the stitch just like I did to start, and slip stitch to the top. Now when I slip stitch to top, this is the loop that belongs to this post, and this is the loop that belongs to the beginning. I don't go through that loop because it makes it look odd to me. What I do is I sneak down this little hole here, which is between the back of that loop and the outside of the loop below it. And I do my slip stitch there. Now see, it gives it closer to a continuity look than if I just scrunched that all up together. That's why I like the look of it better. Anyway, now you have a gap because this isn't coming over to this. So we're going to make it come over to that. We do that with the needle. Okay, now this is the beginning of your border. So you want to go sneak up the back of the beginning side, making sure you hide your thread in there. You want to come up above this. See this little one here? You want to come up above that and come out the front. Make sure you leave enough of a tail that you can weave in. Okay. Now, see how this one comes up above these two? That's why you want to bring this out above these two. And you're going to go down in between these legs. And you're going to come back out where this one went in. Hide this down inside your crochet, out the back. Double check you're happy with it. And then come back here and knot it. Okay, that's the end, guys. I hope you have enjoyed your project. Hope it turned out just like you like. Following this is a more complicated way of doing the ends. It's where you crochet it in, and it's a mess. I did it because it was a challenge, and I thought I'd show you how. And then I also have a flatter way of doing this edge here. Guys, that's it, guys. So happy hooking, and I'll see you next time. Okay, I want to show you something else, of course. This is a variation on the connection, on the connected stitch. Now we're doing a nice bulky pattern, so it doesn't matter if you have a nice bulky edging. What if you didn't want a bulgy edging? What if you had a flat pattern and you want to do the double, but you don't want the bulge? Okay, you do it this way. You wrap, you go under just like normal, but instead of wrapping again, you go in the bottom, pull up a loop, you do a single crochet, and then you go through 2, 2, and 2. I'll show you what happens after a couple stitches. Go in the bottom, do a single, and then do 2, 2, and 2. You're substituting the bottom wrap for making a single crochet. You'll still have a connected stitch, but it won't be as bulky. It'll be flatter. I don't know if you can see that good enough yet. Let's try a few more. Instead of wrapping, you just go in the bottom, do a single crochet. Go under. Instead of wrapping, you go in the bottom with a single crochet. You can see how much flatter that looks compared to the bulk of that one. See, this is pretty much flat. And this bulges, see it? You see the difference between the bulge and the flat? Okay, I'm going to do a good close-up of how to start this border, and then I'm going to do a good close-up on how to close it. So you put on your thread and you go up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you're going to wrap, go behind your thread, your column. Going to wrap, go into the next stitch, and you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, you see you have 2 wraps here. This is the wrap you went behind the column in your first stitch. This is the one on the second stitch that you wrapped beneath it. So now you don't like the light? You don't like the light? For some reason it's messing with me here. There we go. Okay. So we have the stitch that we wrapped around the first column, and then this is where we came and wrapped around below it when we made our second stitch. So now we just wrap, go below the last connection, wrap again, go down, come out, go 2, 2, 2, and 2. You wrap, go below that connection, wrap again, and go in the stitch. So it's wrap, connect, wrap, and go in the stitch. 2, 2, 2, and 2. Okay. Here we've left this a little loose so that we can get into it afterwards, because this is going to have to connect around our last stitch, over our very last stitch in the border. Are my eyes blurry, or is that blurry? Hope it's not blurry. I'm so tired of redoing these. And it's afternoon traffic, and boy, is it being noisy out there. Okay. Now, when you get to your second to the left, to get to your, I got a second to last here. There we go. Okay, you got one stitch left before the beginning of your border. And you're going to, this here is going to be below here, on below the stitch that you're going to make. I'm going to try not to make this one so loose this time. So I wrap, go behind, okay, sneak down through here, go in my bottom stitch, pull up a loop. Oh, I forgot to wrap. Go down through here. I'm holding this with my fingers so it won't get too big this time. Wrap, wrap, and then go into the hole. So, I did my wrap, went behind, go into this first, then you wrap, wrap, thank you, and you go down the hole, bring up a loop. Now you have to sneak behind, wrap your thread, come back here and come between two loops. Now you're going to pretend like this isn't one, you're just going to go through it, and you're going to go through your next two loops. So you're going to wrap a loop, and you're going to go through one, ignore it, two loops, and two loops, and two loops. And then you slip stitch your top, and there you have it.